Welcome back. The South African Football Association, SAFA, says that its National Executive Committee will back its president, Danny Jordaan, in light of rape allegations laid by singer and former ANC MP Jennifer Ferguson. Ferguson formally laid a charge against Jordaan last week. But what does this stance say to gender activists? For comment, joining us on the line is gender activist for the Tshwaranang Legal Advocacy Centre, Vetten, and with me in studio is our sports journalist Thabiso Sithole. Let's start with you, Lisa. Are you surprised?
No, not at all. I think their previous comments and lack of comments on the issue has very much suggested that they are in support of Danny Jordaan. So if they had come out saying they were going to suspend him or take action, I would have been extremely surprised.
And presumably you're disappointed. I'm wondering why SAFA has to take a stance in the first place, and it looks like picking sides.
Well, they clearly are, and they've shown who they're going to be supporting. I mean, I think it's going to be, they're probably betting on the fact that this case is not going to go terribly far, given the notorious difficulties that they happen to see with rape trials. But I think the other issue that they're not thinking about is what sort of impression is this going to give the general public around where they stand in relation to gender-based violence and what sort of model they are messaging.
There is a tension, though, when you're part of a company. I want my organization to support me if there are claims. We do have a basis in this country, a legal standing that says you are innocent until proven guilty.
Yes, absolutely, and I think that's what they're going on. And it's certainly their prerogative to say they're not going to be taking any action against him until the criminal trial is over. That's one point of view. Another point of view might be to look at it from a disciplinary process where, every company or entity has its own legal rights to entail discipline, and they might say, this is bringing the company into disrepute. We may wish to suspend and conduct our own inquiries. They could do that. The two are not mutually exclusive. It's quite possible to have your own internal disciplinary inquiry while a criminal trial is going on, but they're obviously not obliged to do that.
Please stay on the line with us. Thabiso Sithole, are you surprised? Is there a precedent here?
Look, not as men in general, I'm going to tread very lightly on this one because men sometimes, unknowingly or wittingly or not knowingly, we do pass comment or snide remarks in general about with our colleagues. And I think maybe sometimes we overlook that, and we are guilty of such most of the time as men. In this case, a lot of the calls have been coming in asking South African Football Association to say, look, why don't you set aside Danny Jordaan's presidency for now, let him step down. There's a council meeting, there's all this nonsense happening on the side, they want new elections, there's disputes of Danny Jordaan's credibility even now as president of South African football. Why don't you step aside? Since he has been charged, he has brought the company into disrepute, let him sit at home until this is sorted out. And the precedents you speak of, there's been widely in South Africa, most recently the one from the South African Sports Confederation Olympic Committee, SASCOC. Their CEO, Thabile, has since been fired. That was in January after, allegations again of sexual, I don't call it assault, but sexual misconduct came through from the office. And a lot of things came out. And the one common denominator that I picked up when I was looking at all these things, one of the ladies who said this, Thabile, said that her decision to write a letter and actually come out and say it is because Thabile ran the organization with an iron fist. And that's a common denominator, isn't it? Most of the men who run organizations, mostly are men who are CEOs or bigwigs, always run the organizations with iron fist, and things like sexual assault,
power,
yes, does come and go unpicked up, if I can call it that way.
So can you remember an instance where somebody is suspended when they're facing serious claims like the violation of a woman? Well,
this one right now, the one that I mentioned, Thabile, was suspended. That was in July last year.
And
so
how long did it
last? That was in July last year. So the South African Sports Confederation Olympic Committee, they took a stand under Gideon Sam, suspended Thabile, and he was eventually fired in January this year. A lot of the issues pertaining to that are still under, I don't want to call it investigation, but there's currently a South African ministerial commission into sport, that is committee rather into sport, that is currently underway. And Thabile was there a couple of weeks ago giving evidence, and he was asked about the charges leveled against him of sexual harassment, and obviously there's defense, and again, you're right, innocent until proven guilty. But what came in yesterday, to my surprise, and what SAFA did not heed. It was a call from the Minister of Sport, Minister Klasa, who came out and said rape is a serious, a case in South Africa. She hopes that the South African Football Association does the right thing and take into cognizance that there is a victim. Basically saying, remember, whatever you do, the victim comes first. Do take note of that and deal with it applicably. In fact, here it is on screen right now. That's what she said. It must be clear rape is a serious offense in our country and we will always side with the victim. And she expected SAFA to provide leadership in this regard. Now, this was yesterday, before they had the general meeting. Instead, today, SAFA comes out and says, Minister, keep quiet. We back Danny.
Yeah. So the minister's call was ignored, and you're saying there's a very different precedent from SASCOC that could have been looked at.
Well, in fact, I think the SASCOC one, because it's current, that one was possibly the best way to look at it from the South African Football Association's perspective. Get the CEO, or the president in this case, Danny Jordaan, sit him aside, let, as Lisa said, whether it's a DC that goes on behind the scenes, if there's a charge, a criminal charge put against Danny Jordaan, or in that case, it's even worse, then tell Danny to sit at home. Instead of rushing to do elections in a couple of weeks' time, I would think Danny should have done the right thing and sat down. Again, I'm not at all making comments on his innocence or guilt. I just think the right thing to do was to sit down a bit.
Stay with me, Lisa Vetten. As a gender activist, do you have any advice? How could have the Football Association dealt with this, accepting innocence until guilt is proven, but dealing with it in a sensitive way?
Well, I think instead of asking to step aside and to wait, they could either have asked him to step aside until the trial is over, or they could have tried to launch their own investigation. Admittedly, it would be quite difficult in this situation because Jennifer Ferguson is not an employee, and so they don't really possibly have the capacity to be able to do that. But nonetheless, to come out and say you are supporting, not even taking a neutral position, is really just saying some quite problematic things. Because the fact that he's innocent until proven guilty doesn't mean that she's lying until he's found guilty. So it would have been much better for them to say, please, can you step aside until this is over and we'll have somebody else in your position. Because as a country with such high rape rates, we do need to look as if we are not dismissing you from your job or telling you to go away, but that we're also not dismissing this and saying, oh, it's not really a very big issue and we don't take it seriously until the criminal trial is over, which could take another 2 or 3 years.
A very quick comment from you. SAFA says he's been treated unfairly by the media. This is trial by media.
One is not sure. Nobody's saying he's guilty. I think what people are querying is things like why it took him so long to respond, why he didn't want to take up Jennifer Ferguson's offer to meet with her. There didn't need to be an admission of guilt. It could just have been, I am willing to hear what you have to say. He didn't do that. And in fact, he tried, I think, very much to carry on as if life is normal. And I think the media would be quite right to be asking what is happening here, what is SAFA's stance, what does he have to say for himself, because they are asking him for his point of view. And that's not forthcoming.
All right, Lisa Vetten, thank you very much. And it must be said, SAFA said something else, that Jennifer Ferguson has changed her version of events. So they are talking about the facts of the case. Lisa Vetten, we're going to say goodbye to you. Last comment from you. Should we have codes for these sporting organizations around this? Look,
frankly, what Lisa just said in ending right there, what Danny Jordaan and SAFA, let me say Danny Jordaan, when SAFA says trial by media, they're a bit disingenuous. They're already speaking about blocking us, some journalists who comment or pass comment or want questions on their social media platforms, because Danny Jordaan is nowhere to be found. If you want to speak to Danny Jordaan, if he says he's innocent,
he has the right of reply.
And he's got the right to reply. I've sat on this chair and asked SAFA to come through when this matter come up, and we have yet to get any response from them. So it is a bit disingenuous of them to say that they've been trialed by the media. If Danny Jordaan says he's innocent, which presumed innocent and until guilty, then let him have his time in court, or set aside everything that's office bound with SAFA, let football continue and take it from there.
All right, thank you so much, Tabiso Sitole. We take a short break, we look at your weather, we'll be back with more news.